great. You have to be willing to activate the great from within. It starts with you, and it starts right now. Welcome to Activate the Great. We got Chip Clark with us today with Unified Development. Thanks for coming in, Chip.
Oh, man, great to be here, sir.
I can't imagine many of you know that Chip and I have known each other for like 30 years. You know, graduate high school together. You know, then Wayne General's doing some things. ESPN #1 play. Did you see that?
No.
What?
I have not.
Dude, you got to check it out, man. Top play Friday night. We are #1. ESPN, dude is scrambling, run around.
Goodness.
Then as he's going down, he throws like a 20-yard pass to a dude. Dude catches it, spins around, hurdles a dude, and then gets off to the races like 30 yards. And then the Northrop guy pulls him into the end zone.
Into the end zone. Man,
dude.
You know, we've always had really good teams, you know, as far as generals, but I don't ever remember a play like that.
Oh, no. No.
I'm going to have to look it up now.
Dude, you have to. It's crazy. Going back that far, you know, we didn't realize how fortunate we were to go to a melting pot school, or like we joke around, call like a world school.
Yeah.
I think about it every day now.
Yeah.
You know, like how beneficial that was to be in the mix and know, like, you know, what it's like to be around people that have different cultures. They look different than you. They act different than you. They eat different than you. They dress different than you. But there was still that baseline that was there, which, you know, has transcended, you know, into what you and I's relationship is and has, you know, come to be over the past, you know, 20, 30 years.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I always say that relational equity, you know, spends better than money sometimes. And not that you relationship for that, but, you know, as I look back on people that I've known from high school and just now.
Sure.
I don't spend a lot of time with different people, but those that are in the same circle, you and I, just cross our paths, or we're able to cross quite a bit, you know, just because of like mindset.
That's it.
You know, things that you were doing and wanted to impact things that I was doing, and I don't know, it just worked really well. But I believe the familiarity, the relationship, you know, was able to grow from that.
Oh, yeah. I like relational equity. You know, I think a lot of times folks get hyper focused on like outcomes, you know, like they want the dough or the money, right?
Yeah.
They want the success, they want this, but relational equity, that happens over time. That's process driven. That's like, you know, how are the sum of your parts, right? Where you bring together and come together with certain people, like you said, like particles attract type thing.
That's right.
I've always wanted to, I guess, be a servant in the way that I can. What has servitude meant to you?
Man, it's everything. I think for me, that's kind of where I started. I just wanted to give back to my community, right? I wanted to, the way I seen it is like, this is the community that gave me everything that I am, right? Outside of my parents, you know, you think about the school you go to, you think about the neighborhood that you grow up in, you think about the people that's in the neighborhood and the schools, you start to work, right? You know, all of those things just played into that for me as far as serving, and I just wanted to give back, right?
Sure.
Didn't know how, didn't know what that looked like, but I knew that if it was a way for me to do it and also take care of my family, I was really interested in that.
Win-win at that point, right?
Yeah.
Which you found a way to do. I mean, you raised a family. I mean, you had a family.
Certainly.
Obviously grown or getting there or getting grown.
Young men and women.
Doing their thing out there, you know, contributing to society, you know, which, you know, the fact that you were able to do that and, you know, I guess, you know, scratch both itches, that doesn't happen every day.
No, and sometimes you just don't even really notice that that's not a normal thing. For me, it just felt very normal, but I think because I, for whatever reason, had this high desire to want to impact, you know, people, right?
Sure.
And I don't know if it was because, you know, I got to see that a lot from my dad. I got to see that a lot from my granddad, and so to be able to step into that, you know, I felt like it was passed on to me, but the bug felt a little bit crazy when it bit me. So.
Well, dude, maybe talk about the Chip legacy a little bit.
Man, you know, I'm everyone calls me Chip, but my real name is Jimmy, so I'm Jimmy the Third. I was crazy enough to keep it going to Jimmy the Fourth, and he has assured me against my desire that there will not be a Jimmy 5, but
that's now though. It's early.
I know, but he and my dad are in cahoots, you know, with this, and they're making some really good points in his.
All right.
I don't know,
but
at any rate, they call me Chip because I'm Chip off the old block.
Yeah.
And I look like my dad, act like my dad, things of that nature.
But your grandfather, was pivotal in your life. I mean, like the patriarch of your family.
Definitely. I mean, his family was going down the wrong path. He was going down the wrong path. Made some decisions when he was 24 that literally changed the trajectory of our family. Wow. Forever, right? And so I'm forever grateful for the stories that he would tell us, so we would know, kind of what he came from and what he had to do to maintain. I mean, this man graduated to the third grade, didn't go to the third grade, graduated to the third grade, was able to do phenomenal things. Didn't go back to get his education, but really dug his heels deep into serving.
Well, that was a period of time where you could, kind of get away with that.
You could, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's a word that comes to mind when I hear this, like this vibe, man, this fortitude, right? Like, yes. I mean, your grandfather had to have, just to dig his heels in at 24. I'm thinking about when I'm 24. I thought I knew everything. I didn't start thinking about what I didn't know. Right, yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, we do that, though, right?
Right, yeah.
But to have that clarity, and again, it's a different time. You had to grow up a lot faster back then. Here, we kind of, as we've gotten older, we've been able to kind of kick that, that I guess, maturity down the road a little bit.
Yes. Oh, man. I mean, we don't move the same way. The mental energy isn't just endless anymore, right?
Right.
Or you have to stop and pause. But no, I mean, for him to do that I don't know that he was thinking, hey, I'm doing this for my family, as much as he started with himself. It's that airplane mentality. Like, let me buckle up, make sure I'm safe, and grab the mask for me so that it will impact everyone else.
Well, if you don't do it for you, though, I think you've worked through some things. I know I certainly have. Mm-hmm. Things change leaps and bounds when I put myself at the epicenter of that.
Certainly.
Like from a self-care, self-worth.
Yes.
Hey, look, it starts with me. I got to do it because for me, and then everybody else benefits.
Exactly. And some people may see it as, selfish or whatever. And I don't know. I think it's probably the most selfless thing that we could do is to make sure that we're healthy and make sure that we pass that on to those that are around us, right?
That it's okay to take care of yourself. That it's okay for self-care. It's okay to put you at the center of you.
Indeed.
And I think sometimes, we get a little quick with the tongue with that word being selfish. I think we kind of come from this like self-deprecating era, right? Where, it's okay to kind of hold yourself down, like, hey, beat somebody else to the punchline, right? Like the bee rabbit thing, what I mean? Like, but I think we're getting to a period of time where that's not the case anymore. It's not it doesn't serve you to do that.
Right. And my fear, just like with anything that becomes trendy, there's always a going too far, right? Mm-hmm. In the midst of this, self-care era, there's also this, I think these things that come along with it that makes us really sensitive as a people, right? And so, mm-hmm. I mean, you're not able to just say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, because that's a part of self-care too, right? Like,
sure it is.
How deep we make that, and how cancel culture we become with that, how offended we become with that is interesting.
It is interesting because it's offense with a lens. Yeah. Like you're being offended through a medium.
Yes.
Had you get face to face, it's not going to be this fisticuff moment that you've created in your mind.
Typically
never. You can, because you can be humans. You can sit there and talk and read each other, but now we want to be so quick to come to a conclusion on something so we can move on to the next thing, and then we kind of weaponize that perspective, and it's just very interesting time.
Right. I think when we were kids, obviously we didn't have all of these always on type of a deal.
Yeah, so like platforms and stuff.
Either you talked to the individual, or so much time it went past, you just let it go. Mm-hmm. And you were able to let it go because it didn't follow you through video, it didn't follow you through social media, and it wasn't so widespread.
Sure, on display.
Right? On display.
Yeah.
Right. And so now everything is continual, is widespread, it's can live a very long time.
For sure.
And I think the widespread part is the biggest thing, because the more people that know, the harder it is to forgive something, to let things go, to recant.
Yeah.
Like I can't even take something back.
Oh no, it's such a weird time walking on eggshells on everything.
Certainly.
You know, so, but you know, I circling back to like, you know, how we, you know, the sum of our parts, like, you know, the people you grew up with, the people that you're around, you know what I mean? You kind of have this nice baseline, and then you hope that that transcends into adulthood.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
You know, and we just try to kind of, to your point, you know, you kind of want to shine a light on these things. You want to, say, hey, these are real. How do we work with it? Because we're not going to remove these things from society.
No.
It's how we're going to maneuver now within the new normal, right?
Yeah, for me, it's quite simple, man. I'm just going to be me. Right?
Yeah.
Unapologetically. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, self-care, knowing yourself, putting yourself at the center. And when I think when we do that, we are our best version of ourselves.
Sure.
And it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks.
No, I totally agree. And once we get away from that and we stop, like, you know, like kind of feeding off of that, you know, that notion of having to get this constant validation from everybody, right? You can really do some big, powerful things. And like some of those powerful things, like you've been able to do, you know, like with the city life, you know, like how we, you know, really started reconnecting, you know, maybe talk about like how you got involved with Youth for Christ.
Man. So I was working because I didn't go the regular education route, right? You know, loved school for the social aspect and didn't really apply from the educational standpoint. And so tried to do college, you know, for a year, and I realized, man, these Fs are really expensive.
Yes, they are.
So, you know, I was wise enough to say, okay, well, let me do what I've always done, which is work. So I just worked. I worked in warehouses, and I worked in some factory work, but mostly on the logistics side.
Well, to take care, you got to do what you got to do, right?
Take care of my family, right?
Got a youngin' or two at that point,
In my mind, it was always a means to an end.
Yeah.
I always knew that there was something, you know, more. Just didn't really know how to define that then. But I can remember sitting on my forklift, and I'm writing out these mentoring programs.
Yeah.
On my forklift, supposed to be, you know, grabbing a crate of corn or whatever. I don't know.
Whatever
I was
it
at
is,
Walmart
right.
distribution at the time, and I'm writing these programs out, and just really desiring to maybe give what I wasn't given in some regard, right? From a community perspective, and so that turned into me having an opportunity to volunteer as a mentor.
Sure.
Now, when that happened, man, it just, this bug hit, and I was like, man, is there a way to just do this all the time, right? And now I'm daydreaming at home, just trying to figure out how I can give back to young people, and had the opportunity to interview for a position with the organization Youth for Christ, and
because at that time, like, I mean, memory serves me right, our man Luther, man, he was doing big things, and he was ready to transition.
Yep. And so I had the opportunity to be a part of that. He didn't transition right away, so I got to have a good 4 years, not necessarily doing city life, but being a part of the organization to learn from him and other individuals. And so when it was my time, 4 years down the road, those mentoring programs that I wrote on the forklift, began to implement those over the years. And I mean, I'm not there anymore, and those programs are still going.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal to hear the stories. That's well beyond anything that I even had thought of at the time. But I got to set the foundation for that, and it feels good to know that people are still benefiting from something that was downloaded to me, and
like a medium, right?
Yeah.
There's credence to it, right?
Yeah. No. So it was pretty phenomenal. But during my time there, one of the things that I loved was that the attention that I had from the young people.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I know you. We did a little program together on the financial side.
Oh, deep pockets.
Deep pockets. Yeah. I still got pictures of those, man. I need to send them to you. But
that was great though. Like
man,
talking about financial literacy.
Talking about financial literacy with some young people who wanted to be there but didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Right. They knew they wanted to be around us, but they didn't necessarily want to learn it, but we made it engaging.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they still, I talk to those kids still to this day. They're not kids anymore. They're young men, right? But what they're doing now, those things impacted them.
Oh, sure.
3 of them have like their own businesses that they're starting, right? And it's phenomenal.
You don't think about the relationships that you have though, because a lot of those, if you and I's relationship wasn't solid, that never would have worked.
Oh, no.
right? Because I'm walking the first time, they're like, "Who's this dude?"
Right.
You know what I mean? But then it didn't take long, and that dissipated. But that's, you know, folks out there that you think that those relationships that you have from back in the day can't transcend into something meaningful. I just beg to differ.
Man, I would say even pressing even more, right? And not to the point where we're using each other, right? And
No.
we never
Not.
I don't
No.
believe, entered that. I mean, there was things from that moment that
It was all selfless. I mean,
yes. I mean, to be able to give that way, but then some of the other things that you did that was above and beyond was, the coat giveaways, the turkey giveaways. You just continue to come back, right? And I think that those moments, even though they didn't happen every day, the fact that they happen, people can always point back to, oh, you remember Mr. Greg? You remember Mr. Tom? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're a part of their story now as well, right? Because they didn't want to just know that Greg gave me this turkey or gave me this coat. What they were, I see now what they've gotten out of it is, I want to be able to do what Greg did.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's huge.
I don't, it's hard for me to talk about those things. I don't put it out there like that, but it is moving. And if you can do it, you should do it.
Yeah, and that's their mindset. It's like not so much I want to find out how much I can get from someone or be a part of this program to get something. I go to City Life. What they left from that moment is like, I want to be able to do that too.
It's there's a lot of blessings, right? There's a lot of things that, when you do care, you're leading in with those things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you've done. Like you've kind of, there's probably some opportunities that you could have taken, and you've worked on, and we're going to talk about some of the new opportunities and things that you're doing right now.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to get to that. But all these things lead to that though. Like if you have a calling, I guess maybe talk about acting on a calling, because you had this calling. There was some, speaking to you like, look, man, I need you.
Yeah.
And I need you to do this, and I need you to do it now.
Man, I was just listening to a little excerpt of something today, and one of you and I, we share a favorite, motivational speaker, and Eric Thomas. Actually got to go, see him together.
Yeah.
But one of the things they were talking about was his first gig. One of his first gigs where he actually got paid big money. It was a $10,000 gig, and they told him that, we want you to come, but you need to put on a suit.
Yeah, you can't wear your hat.
Can't wear your hat.
Yeah.
He says, tell him no. And his partner's like, what? No. And so he calls back, tell him no. But his mindset was, this is my brand, right?
Yeah.
I believe that when you're called to something, when you are chosen to do something, right, and you come to an understanding of that, there is something that gives you this peace to move that's well beyond what others may be doing, right? It gives you the peace to move against the grain at times, right? Knowing that, hey, this is what I'm called to do, and not only this is what I'm called to do, but this is my time. Yeah. And so you can keep your 10,000, you can keep your million, you can keep your whatever, because I'm supposed to do it this way, right? And it's not
it's a faith thing, man. It's like you either have faith or you don't.
Yes.
I think about that phrase often, like when confluences arise or crossroads, you know what I mean? Like, go with listen.
Yes.
Just listen.
Yeah, it's that some people call it, the gut feeling. Some people call it intuitive. I liken those things to all be the same thing, right? Just it's being given to you, and sometimes you don't even know why you know what you know, right? But you know that you're supposed to be the one.
You know what's
this
right.
Specific thing, yeah.
Man, City Life, that was a decade, right?
Yeah, I was there for 10 years. The organization has many different pockets, but 10 years within that organization. I call it my university. It was so much that I learned during that time.
When those kids respected you, man. Like when I walk in, like you were just beacon of light for them, man. Like a light bulb, and not, and I don't want to say a sea of darkness, but it may have felt like that. We're talking like to a lot of these kids, coming there, like just help them enough, you know what I mean, to where it wasn't completely suffocating. They didn't get snuffed out. There was just enough air to breathe.
Right. No, it was, I don't know, I had a good mix between disciplinary and a cool big brother.
Yeah.
Right.
But they want that though.
They wanted that, yeah. So it wasn't, I wasn't going to let them just do whatever, yet at the same time, hey, let's go do this. Right.
Sure.
And it was that type of balance, that I think gave me an in. I still to this day, man, it's just dealing with young people is just like that, man. I'm able to switch up or, help them see that I care,
Yeah, and that's what I feel, that calling too. When I see a young person, like a couple weeks ago, had a conversation with some young bucks, and they're making some decent money and still living at home. I was like, how much money you saving a month? You still living at home, you got no bills, how much money you saving? And just kind of diving into some conversations like that, from my lane, but I think there's a lack of that right now because everybody's so caught up.
And it's hard, right? I mean, you do what you do, plus you got podcasts and family, things of that nature. Taking the time, and then you got to care for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So taking the time to be able to give of yourself, I mean, that's a pretty big thing.
For sure.
And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely see that there's moments where there's people like us that's not able to give back in the way that we desire, but we're doing what we're doing in order to give back, right? It's like a cycle.
But you've given back way more. I've been able to be a part of give back opportunities, but I mean, you walked it.
Well, I mean, it was part of my career path, right? And so it became really easy, and because it was a part of what I was supposed to be doing. But I did it because I was called to it. So I didn't just do it because it was paying the bills. I wanted a job that paid the bills so I could do what I
wanted to do.
Do what I wanted to do, right? And it provided that, right? And so that time, man, like I said, it was so educational for me. Everything from strategic planning,
sure, to
vision casting, right?
Yeah.
To leading a board or committee, things of that nature, raising dollars. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't equate those things to what I'm doing right now. I wasn't thinking about, hey, let me do this so that I can do this. It was like design, like this is your path, right?
Yeah, like there was an architect, right?
Yeah.
So like at that time, you probably didn't have any kind of idea of what was being built, though.
No.
What was the rest of that design? So maybe talk about how your time with City Life and how everything in your life leading up to that, kind of, led to the next set of drawings, if you will.
Yeah, man. I think it's like our life is like a GPS, right? And we're being led to one thing to the other, right?
Sure.
And sometimes we get attached. We stop in a city that we like. We don't want to go any further. Like, I like this city, right?
It's safety and sandwich.
Oh,
Let's
my
go.
goodness,
Yeah.
you're right. And so that's how it was, man. I was caught up in city life, and I loved what I was doing. I mean, I poured my life into it.
Sure you did.
Right.
I watched it.
And it was interesting when it was time to leave. And it wasn't, the organization saying, hey, it's time to go. It definitely wasn't me just like, hey, I'm ready to go. An opportunity came up that was kind of attached to my granddad in a lot of different ways. And it gave me this piece that I needed to go.
Yeah.
Right. And this was 2017. And then I transitioned to do some things for a church.
Sure.
In that transition, and I was in that transition for 4 to 5 years, actually just coming out of it. But during that time, I was able to pull back enough, right? And I mean, I was on different boards and committees, and I removed myself from those boards and committees and became very singular focused. Didn't really even realize how busy I was until I was able to stop, pause,
sure,
and get the rest of the directions.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so I was at City Life. I was with Youth for Christ for a reason, for a season, to learn. That was my university, right? And then from that time, I was able to be around some people that helped give me, the rest of the design.
Nice.
And so we talked about relational equity. Just that alone began to lead me towards the things that we're doing now.
So you were talking about how relational equity has transcended and kind of led you to where you're at now.
Yeah. So I would say, so there's two things. There's the relational equity, and then I think exposure. I used to tell the kids all the time that exposure breeds greatness.
Oh yeah.
And so some people talk about, the 7 people that you're around, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like to say, those people in the environment, right, are all important towards our growth emotionally, and just mentally, right? And so in the setting that I was in and the setting that I came out of, there was relationships with people that, even, like yourself, that were doing some things that not only helped impact to happen, but you guys, were impactful, right?
Sure.
And so I began to think like, man, if, we can continue to help the community through a philanthropic standpoint, which
Sure.
is honorable. I believe that it's phenomenal, when people give the way that they give, and I was able to raise, some good money, and and see some good money being raised into the world that I was in, right? But there was just something more. There was still something missing. Like, even with all the impact, I felt like I was spinning my wheels. Like, how can we do more? How can we impact more? And then why is the community that grew me up is not like the community that I'm actually living in right now? Like, what's different? What are the things that
what are some of those things you're trying to bring back?
Just the business aspect, right?
Like just the commerce, like the people standing on their own 2 feet.
Yeah. And so what I began to work on at that time is just really researching communities, thriving communities and communities that aren't thriving. Like, what are the things that are missing, right?
Yeah, like the unified ones, if you will.
Yeah. And so a great segue into even the name of my business, which is called Unified Developments. And the tagline is, we bring communities with us. Our vision is, we bring communities with us to create a pathway or cultivate a pathway to economic sustainability in underengaged communities, right?
Sure, scratching backs kind of thing. Like, hey, look, I'm trying to do this thing. Let's support this. Let's support this. Support your
somewhat
community.
of a convener, right?
Yeah.
A convener of business opportunities, right? We attract, we acquire, we help activate the business sector in inner city communities, where some people call them under-resourced. We believe that there's a very strong resource, and a lot of people, right, in these communities. Workforce development is a part of what we're looking at, but even more than that, how do we help solidify the business community from that community?
Yeah, even from like a resource, like a backbone kind of thing.
Certainly.
Would you say it's fair that you're, not to minimize anything, but if the bottom line, you're trying to lead people to water in this effort?
Indeed, right. So there's a external to the community. So when we say we bring communities with us, we're not talking about necessarily just the community that we're impacting.
Yeah.
We're talking about the communities that surround that community as well as the community that we're in.
Sure. Even to be a positive influence, to be a beacon of light.
Yeah.
We've talked about that a couple times here. So how's that come along? It's coming together. It's becoming unified.
Definitely coming together. We started out with a very specific project, right?
Sure.
And as of mid-July, that project is on hold, just because of the land that we were looking at is no longer available. But that project was geared to bring grocery, restaurant, medical facility, couple retail spots, early childhood, from a for-profit standpoint. And I mention that just because, again, we have a lot of amazing philanthropic projects going on, but there's always a question mark of, how do we sustain this? What's the sustainability of this? And again, as we look into other communities, the sustainability is that it's a business.
Yeah.
Right. It's
people.
For-profit entity. There's people. There's a process for making sure the ROI is always still high. Right.
People taking ownership. Right.
Yes.
I keep coming back to like this idea, this life choice of standing on your own 2 feet, and what I've heard from a lot of our conversations is like you're wanting to show people how to do that, how to support other people.
Certainly.
How to,
invest, right?
Yeah.
So this is the thing. One of the things I would say is that I like to say that while under-resourced communities is under-resourced, they're heavily assisted or supported or crutched, right?
Yes.
And so how do we when we're looking towards, if we're using that analogy of crutch, if that leg is going to heal at some point, the doctor's going to tell you, don't put any pressure on it right now, but there's a certain point when the doctor says you have to put pressure on it.
For sure. So you just need a little therapy, right? So you can provide that business knowledge, know-how therapy through your platform.
Through the platform. And so yes, okay, let's provide the crutch, but from that crutch, what's the next PT move that we do as from a business standpoint?
Sure.
Yeah.
So like with this chunk of land, that's kind of on hold right now, what's, for anybody that's listening out there that, may know something that isn't on the market, what's the ideal piece of property look like?
Yeah. So
what you're trying to do.
So from the community standpoint, the way we like to work is in the community and then leading out in the community, right? Well, close proximity though. And so within the community, we're looking for anywhere from, 8 to 16 acres.
Okay.
Of land.
16 being the better.
16 being the
ideal,
Taj Mahal,
sure.
Side of things for us.
Well, like where you get the more ground, the more businesses, the more self-sustainment. You don't have to go out of the community to get what you need, and that's a big thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like back in the day, I mean everything was 5 blocks away or 4 blocks away or 3 blocks away. Now you're as good as how close is Walmart?
Yeah, man. I lived close to Anthony, and I worked at City Market.
Yeah,
I worked at the McDonald's across the street.
Yep.
My doctor's office was right there on Anthony and Paul.
Right.
They're now, in New Haven. And again, you have to leave your community for really basic needs.
Sure.
Right. To even get something done, or the outskirts of your community, because that's just how things are. Right
well, I mean, I grew up, by the airport in Wayndale. I mean, like you had what you had right there. I worked at the, dating myself at the Rogers across the street right there from my neighborhood. But like, if to do anything though, you had to drive. And then when they closed Southtown Mall,
oh man, it's over.
Then what?
Right. Yeah. And again, I understand why. When you look at economics, when you look at the logic behind a lot of the different things,
the dollars, sometimes doesn't make sense type things.
Yeah, and the risk, is so high. I mean, so I don't like to just say these things blatantly, like, hey, we're this investment happened. Yes, those things happen, but when you look under the hood, right? When like we talked about, instead of posting things, let's have the conversation. So as I began to just have the conversation and not trying to solve it. Right?
Yeah, but
just more so just hearing from people, you understand why the community turned out the way that it did.
So it's not just one thing.
It's not just one thing. It was a multiplicity of things that happened over time.
Yeah.
And there wasn't some different things set up for ownership and plans beyond what was actually going on at the time. And then a lot of times there was other shiny things that began to grab the attention in certain areas, that began to grab the attention of maybe that same business owner, right? And you have to go to what's making you money at the end of the day, right? Yes, act of love and service is super important, but I go back to, in order for me to give the act of love and service, I have to be healthy. My business has to be healthy.
Right.
And so those things, mattered. And so I don't like to just say, give this picture of they left or this. I like to say, hey, this is what happened. Now, what do we do?
Right.
It's plain simple. We're like, what do we do now?
How do we make things equitable again?
Yes.
Because, to be fair, and I know at the risk of getting, chastised for this, I mean, there's just no martyr bonus.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to take care of you and yours and the community at the same time. There isn't this, Mother Teresa that's just kind of hanging out there. No. And, we have to be making, sensible decisions, equitable decisions, giving people opportunities to have their own business, do their own things, spawn their ideas, help them learn how to finance these projects, let them know what's out there from a business development standpoint, business planning. I mean, there's so many things that are out there right now that, are barely being showcased.
Yep. And you just eloquently, just explain the communities, right? So those are those individuals that help to make those things happen. And what we do is we serve as a convener. We serve as a developer as well. So we're in the game as well. But what we try to do is, one, we don't ever want to be the everything.
Yeah. It's not about, you don't want to be bigger than the cost, right?
Right. The cost has to flow. When I go to Jefferson Point, or when I go northwest in the DuPont area, there is not one entity that I can point to and say, oh, they made all this happen.
call it the magic wand, right? Like they just waved it, huh?
Yeah.
Like Harry Potter. Like it don't happen like that.
It just doesn't happen like that. It's a
Nor should it.
multiplicity of individuals that attract individuals, right? And so, or other entities, right? And that's now
it's no different than it's a smaller community that has one business that employs everybody, and then that business is gone. What happens? Same thing from a development or from a just from a community development standpoint. If you got one player doing it all,
right?
What happens when that person passes away?
Yeah, and that market is cornered, and that vision leaves, right? And so if the vision to bring to life the business community from within the community, right? That ownership looks different, right? Those decisions look different for sustainability purposes for hard times. And when hard times come, right, you're not, if you don't live in that community no longer, it's easier
out
to
of
just
sight, out of mind. Until you run into somebody,
right? My wife's car, and I'm telling on myself right now, needs oil.
Yeah,
and she already told me, but I want to drive her car, so I always forget. Like I was like, baby, just take my keys one day and just drive off in my truck. And I will know that I need it. It's out of sight, out of my mind. I don't even. It's even though it's I pay for the car. I see my wife driving in her pretty self. All those kind of things. I don't think about the oil. I don't think about the gas. And I should probably put it on my calendar.
Yeah, right.
But it's easy when you're not looking at the gas light, when you're not looking at the oil light on a regular basis.
Sure.
To forget those simple things, right? And I believe that's what happens in communities where business owners, where the majority of the business owners aren't from the community, right?
It is. There was a period of time like where we're trying to go back decades where, hey, Billy did this, Paul did that. You know what I mean? Yeah, Darius did that. You know what I mean? That's what they did.
Yeah.
Like you had all these technicians where everybody had, and that was the community aspect of it because everybody played their part.
Yes.
And so what I love is that you're really bringing something new to the forefront here on September 27th too, like where you're kind of bringing this forum,
Definitely.
Bringing everybody together. So maybe talk about that.
Yeah, so we one of the things that we believe, and so obviously external to the community, but in the community as well, there is a need to increase our knowledge when it comes to business. I wish I knew it all. I don't. I'm learning, as I go on a lot of different things.
Like what we don't know.
Right. and everyone is doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I talk to people who make transition from private equity to private equity, just different groups, right? Mm-hmm. And it's still a learning curve, right? From corporate to private to, from nonprofit to public. You know what I'm saying? There's these different things that you're going to always have to learn. And so one of the things that typically is presented in our community is a financial literacy, and nothing wrong with financial literacy. But there is a belief that we have is that sometimes it's just a connection.
Sure, a nudge.
Yeah. A nugget, of information that you need.
Oh, yeah.
And we will, I've seen a lot of literacy programs start out really well, and then by the end there's like 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
not enough nuggets.
Not enough nuggets.
Yeah.
Or all they needed was the nugget, and they got it in the first meeting. There, I'm no longer interested. I thought I was going to learn more. So what we want to do is be able to give some really good business nuggets from business people from the community that's navigated our market. So we can call in people from Atlanta, we can call in people from Cleveland, we can call in people from other markets, and I think that we can glean things from them really well. But I think that there's something to the business professionals from our community that have navigated the Fort Wayne market really well, right? And so that's what we're doing is we're bringing those individuals to the forefront. It's in a mini conference type of a setting.
Who are you bringing in?
So James Kahn,
absolutely.
So owner of Obakai, and obviously owns Baker Street, Proximo, and Hoppy Gnome. He's also working on a development himself right now.
Sure he is, right there on the north side of town there.
Yes.
Yep.
The things that he's done, he started out as a waiter.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he was a busboy at Biaggi's, and I'm not going to tell all of his story because you get to come on the 27th and hear it all. And now is going to be doing some development things, right? He's been able to show success, along the way that has prepared him now for this development opportunity.
Sure.
Right. And so we want people to hear that story. He's going to share some of his, pitfalls. He's going to share some of the things that that helped him, some of the things that was a hurdle, to even get these things done. And I think it's going to be something that people will really be able to glean from. The host, her name is Toya Tharp. Toya is another Wayne grad. She came out in 96 before we did. She is a radio personality right now and also does some other things in the community as well. She's at 96.9 and is just doing a phenomenal job. So she will be actually facilitating
like a moderator kind of thing. Yeah, sure.
That conversation with James. We have a young lady named Angel Subtle. She has a brand called Halo Media. And she's just phenomenal. I call her the mogul, right? She just does everything. She'll be talking breakout class on branding. Actually, the name of that particular breakout session is branding is beyond the logo.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Right. So it's you represent your brand. If you don't walk around, with your shirt on and the logo, you still represent it.
Yep.
Right. People may you want them to remember the logo, but people may forget because they know you, or they may be reminded because they know you. Right. They may. A lot of people say, "Well, what's it called?" They're just excited about being around Chip sometimes.
Well, that's it.
And I appreciate that.
You to your point though, like I think we forget, we don't realize or haven't been taught that you need to be your own brand. Period. Because then it doesn't matter what the logo is because they know what you're about.
Yep.
They know like whatever logo is on there, you vetted it, you figured it out,
yep.
and it fits. It's in alignment with your brand.
Indeed. And so that's she'll be teaching about branding, talking about branding. We have a guy named Aaron Boone. He's a realtor. Works for Keller Williams. Just doing a phenomenal job. But even before he was working for Keller Williams, Aaron is just always been an executor. When he has an idea, he's not afraid to execute. Some things have been, wildly successful. Some things haven't been.
Right.
And so one of the things he's going to talk about is his breakout session is called Just Execute. With the mindset of wherever you're at on the continuum of, wanting to begin to, success or growth or scalability or whatever it may be, just execute, write it down, make the LLC. Who's your attorney? Like just execute, like just walking through some of those things and what it looks like. And then there's a young man named Andre Beasley, another Wayne grad, who's teaching on business management, really just focusing on, honestly, not the management side, but more of the customer service, how to ensure that the businesses that we already own have the services and look and ambiance that is appealing to everyone, not just who lives in the community, but everyone, because we can't survive by just people from the community. We have to survive by creating a market that everyone wants to be a part of, and that's how businesses survive. And so he'll be talking about that. We have a networking hour to begin with, and it's going to be phenomenal. A little bit of music, some heavy hors d'oeuvres, and
because you bring in a chef too, right?
I got Chef Stephanie Rogers, who's going to be coming. We talk about relational equity. She's another Wayne grad.
We got another Wayne grad there too, man. Our man Big Keys.
Big Keys. I'm bringing my friends to the community to give back.
And really bringing the community your friends.
Indeed.
Look,
Indeed.
These folks got it going on. Like, I think about how long I've known Andre and known you and Keys and like a lot of these other guys, and even like some folks like they're out doing it that aren't a part of this. This is how deep the history goes though, like for all the Wayne folks.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's just for me when I see like what you're doing and how it's been going, and like it's kind of like in my mind keeping a mental catalog of all these things, and then to see what you got going on September 27th, and that's at the summit, right?
Yes, it's at the summit. It's the 27th, 5:30 to 8:30. Like I said, we start with a cocktail hour. We have our main session, and then we go into breakout sessions, and then the night's over. We will do this again in November with the goal of doing them quarterly in 2023. We have those dates already set as well. Mixed in with that will also be, we'll do the 4 quarterly, but then we'll also do a seminar. We'll also do an actual, big conference. So 6 events all around business annually. That's all about business engagement, business growth, business scalability. Those individuals that foundations that give away money. I believe that this is a great place to learn, the business market even before you give funds out, right? And begin to see who's interested in continuing to put the tools in their toolbox to do what they need to do.
Well, what I would say is this is an open invitation for anybody that is been picking up what we're laying down today to come out and check it out on the 27th. You thinking there's some ways that you can be involved in the community? You want to find out what it's all about before you just start writing checks?
Yeah.
Maybe pop out here for a little bit.
Definitely.
See what it's all about. See what's the sum of the of the parts of that's coming together for unified developments.
Right. And I'll say this, man. I don't believe in doing anything for free. And so we have a registration that's $50.
Yeah.
Right? So we also don't believe in breaking the bank, but everybody that's a part of it, we are making sure that they're taken care of as well.
But you think about what you blow $50 on.
Oh man,
this is $50 to be in that room
for sure. No, but I say that because again, hitting on the philanthropic side of things, it is phenomenal. Again, the individuals and the people and the programs that we have, but I also believe that there's something to investing in yourself.
No doubt about it, and it's not, and I think we need to get away from this whole self-help moniker. Okay, self-improvement. There's nothing wrong with it
at all.
There doesn't mean you're broken. You know what I mean? That's the thing that folks need to get over. I talk about this all the time. You can't self-assess from I Suck Island. Okay, you just end up talking to a volleyball. You can't do it. Like I Suck Island is not a place where you sit there and try to figure out what you need to get better at. You're like, hey, you need to accept yourself for what it is, knowing that there's more there.
Yes,
there's more in the gas tank.
Yes.
It's not like what you're not good at. What are the things that you can improve upon?
Yeah,
and those are the things. That's the mindset that you want to be in. Not thinking about what you're not, thinking about what you could be.
Indeed, and that's at the end of the day, we all have to do our part, right? I'll say this, and my wife just started working out with me. She's regretting it a little bit because I put her under the weight, but I'm there to spot her, and sometimes I make her go more than what she can push. But I help her to understand, like, you've done a lot of work already, but you need to keep pushing, and I'm going to spot you. Right? And I believe that that's what we're talking about. Like, we want to be a spotter. We don't want to lift the weight for you.
No, that's it, man. Well, I appreciate you stopping by, man. That's a perfect way to end it. We just want to be spot on with everybody's improvement, give everybody an opportunity to do it, create these venues, and lead people to water. And you're doing an excellent job of that, and we appreciate you.
Appreciate you having me on, Greg.
Yeah, man. All right, guys, we'll catch you next time on Activate the Great. I want to take a quick minute to thank our sponsor, ccmindiana.com, for all your mortgage needs. Very competitive, ready to rock, ready to help you be a pre-approved buyer that can compete. Ready to get pre-approved for your next mortgage? Stop by ccmindiana.com and see how we can help.